It's new pedal day, everybody. Universal Audio has announced 3 new exciting pedals, and I'm here to tell you about them. Let's get into it. Thank you so much for joining me on this video, friends. My name is Justin Waterfield. I am here at the Bloor Street store in Toronto in the keyboard department, which is a bit of a change. I am so excited to be talking about these Universal Audio pedals today. Universal Audio has already released a line of 6 pedals. We have the Ruby, the Woodrow, and the Dream for amp simulators. Then we have modulation, delay, and reverb pedals in the form of the Astra, the Golden, and the Starlight. Today we are taking a look at the Max, the Galaxy, and the Del-Verb. These are a continuation of what UA has already been doing in terms of putting some of their great DSP plugins into hardware form. And we're getting something a little bit different this time. We're not getting the all singing, all dancing, here's every modulation we have, here's every delay we have kind of pedals. We're getting very specific use cases here. These pedals can take line level signals from things like synthesizers and outboard gear. They can also take instruments. They are stereo in and stereo out. Big, heavy metal enclosures. You know, this is sturdy stuff. They each have 2 foot switches. Each foot switch, depending on the pedal, has different functionality. It does have a USB port, but the USB cannot power these pedals. It needs the 9-volt power adapter. But the USB port is for connecting it to your computer and interfacing with the UAFX software. The UAFX software is a unique benefit for these UA pedals because it lets you control extra parameters that you don't get on the front panel. It also gives you access to really cool routings. So you can, say, put different effects to different outputs because these are stereo outputs. So you could have, say, one effect going left and one effect going right, for example, depending on the model you choose. So enough talking, let's get into it. This is the Universal Audio Galaxy pedal. This is a recreation of the RE201 Space Echo. It has pretty much all the controls of the original. We have the echo rate, which is how fast the repeats come after the dry signal. We have the feedback control, which is how many repeats you get. We have the echo volume, so how loud the echoes are relative to the dry signal. Then we have these controls down at the bottom that do a couple of things depending which mode you're in. There's the input volume, which affects how much signal is hitting the, tape machine, and you can really get some nice saturation that way. We have the dwell control, which is for the reverb. Now, the original unit had a spring reverb in it, and this just controls the decay of that spring reverb. And then the reverb volume is pretty self-explanatory. Now, this switch here on the right governs whether in the main mode or in the alt mode for these controls here. So in the alt mode, these 3 controls on the bottom become tape age, which is, emulating how old the tape is in the tape machine and whether it's going to faithfully reproduce your echoes or kind of trash them up. And then we have bass and treble controls. And now this is just on the wet signal. This is just on the repeats. This one here on the left saying head select. So these are the different playback heads within the tape machine. And this gives you access to sort of interesting rhythms like dotted eighths, dotted sixteenths, sort of for that sort of triplet feel and not just a repeat every 2 or 4 notes or whatever. So this lets you select heads 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2, 2 and 3, and then 1 and 3, or all of them. So you can get different repeats, different textures very, very easily this way, moving that switch around. I dialed in a patch here on the Modal Cobalt 8, and let's hear what this sounds like just dry. So, kind of nice, 80s Juno kind of thing. Let's kick on the Galaxy and see what it does to the sound. So the way I've dialed it in, it's pretty subtle, but when it's not there, you really hear it. You really hear, you know, just how like small and narrow it kind of gets. This thing really spreads things out. You can sort of hear repeats happening, but it doesn't take away from the main signal. And that's really the appeal of a tape delay, is that it gets out of the way of the main signal because it's not a direct copy of the dry signal, and your ear doesn't catch onto it. So it's just kind of this extra lush padding behind whatever it is that you're playing. It's very, very cool. Now, I dialed in a sequence here on my trusty circuit tracks. I'm going to leave the Galaxy off for the first bit, and then I'm going to kick it on, and you're going to hear the 80s come to life. Here we go. Next up, we have the Universal Audio Del-Verb. This is your Ambience Companion. This is a delay and reverb pedal together. What they've done is they've taken 3 algorithms from the Starlight and 3 algorithms from the Golden and put them into a box that is much easier and much simpler to use in terms of getting them both to work together, in terms of simplifying the parameters so that you don't have this sort of expansive, you know, tweak fest if you had both of these pedals side by side. You can have them in one box, working together as a team, making you sound that much bigger. Let's talk about the controls. There's the delay time, which governs how close together the repeats are. There's the feedback control, which dictates how many repeats you get. We have the mix control, which is a dry-wet mix for the delay. We have a color control, which changes depending on the delay algorithm that you choose, which is governed by this little switch here on the left. There is the modulation control, which again changes function depending on which algorithm you choose. Then there's the reverb control, and this is really the only control on the pedal that you get for the reverb. You can either have more or less of it. That's it. And you pick the type of reverb that you want with this switch here on the right. So very, very simplified, really easy to use. If you just want a pedal that gives you a sense of space with minimal fuss, I think this is your ticket right here. So again, I have a patch dialed in on the Cobalt, and it's a little bit more mellow than the last one. Oh, I should also say that the delay and the reverb are independently controlled, each by their own foot switch. So you can either have the delay on or the reverb on, or both, or none, which is super cool. So let's hear what the delay sounds like. And the reverb. So really, really opens up this otherwise kind of low-key, kind of boring conservative patch, right? It gives it a sense of rhythm, but it also just spreads out that sound. So again, I have a sequence programmed here on the circuit. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave everything off on the Del-Verb for the first little bit, so we can just hear the synth just playing through its sequence. And then I'll just kick on each side individually and then together, and then the sequence will repeat and we'll clear it out and you'll be back to just the synth on its own. So here we go. Here we have the Universal Audio Max. This is a preamp slash compressor pedal, but not only is it a preamp slash compressor, it is a dual compressor. Yes, folks, you get two compressors in this box along with preamp emulation. This is magic sauce. Let's talk about it. The red knob in the top corner here is the preamp. So when it's off, there's just unity gain, no coloration, nothing like that. As you turn it up, you get a lot of really cool tube, kind of like, console kind of saturation. Very, very tasty. I'll demo that when we get into it. Here we have the comp control, which is, I guess, like the threshold. So how much signal is hitting each compressor model and therefore governing how much that circuit is going to compress your signal. There's a toggle switch here which selects comp 1 or comp 2. So basically it's a mode switch that flips all these knobs over into affecting either compressor 1 or compressor 2. Moving on from there, we have the output. So this is the output for the whole pedal, preamp and both compressors combined. Typically, you'd set this and adjust this later if you want a bit of a boost or if you want unity gain with your dry signal. That's what that's for. Now we have these switches in the middle. They're identical on the left and the right. So there's comp 1, comp 2, and then we have three identical models. We have the Dyna, which is modeled after the MXR Dynacomp. We have the Opto LA2A, which is pretty self-explanatory. And then we have the FET 1176, which frankly couldn't be any more clear. And they're the same on either side. Now, I should say at this point that each of the compressors is individually foot switchable, so you can select one compressor or the other or both at the same time. By default on the pedal, the compressors run in series. So compressor 1 runs into compressor 2. On the bottom here, we have attack and release knobs on the left and the right, and in the center we have the ratio. Now, these knobs do different things depending on the algorithm that you choose for both compressor 1 and compressor 2. So I'm going to grab this bass guitar behind me here. We're going to test this thing dry. We're going to then engage it. I'm going to test compressor 1, then compressor 2, then both of them, and then I'm going to start dialing in some of that juicy preamp distortion. Now, one other thing I should say, I've set compressor 1 to an 1176 to really catch the peaks of my fingerstyle playing, and compressor 2 is set to the LA2A. Because it's got a slower attack, it'll just smooth everything right out. Let's hear what this sounds like. So you'll notice something here. Depending on which compressor is engaged, the lights will obviously come on to tell you which compressor 1 or compressor 2 is active, but they also change color. Now, this I got a little bit worried about because I thought, oh, when it's in the red, it's like clipping the circuit. It's nothing like that. It tells you green, it's not compressing at all. Yellow, it's compressing a little bit, and red, it's compressing a lot. So this is not a clipping signal, this is just somewhat of an indicator as to how much compression is going on in the circuit. So you've heard both in isolation, let's hear them both together. And as promised, let's dial in the preamp to about high noon and see what we get. Thank you again, friends, for joining me on this video. I had a blast. Thank you so much to Universal Audio for getting me the pedals early so I could shoot this video and show you what they're all about. If you need to know any more information, the links are in the description below. I recommend you get down to your local Long McQuade and try these pedals out. There's a lot of functionality that I didn't get the chance to go into in this video, but I want you to have this experience for yourself. Again, my name is Justin. We'll catch you on the next one.